A very good morning to each and every one of you. You're watching Media Monitor. I'm your host, Alicia Jali. Thank you so much for choosing us. This morning, we look at the likely effects of the scathing judgment against Nomgcobo, Jiba and Mrwebi. Advocate Madonsela is leaving no stone unturned in her state capture investigation. President Zuma feels abused in Parliament. And lastly, we look at the medal score in the Paralympics and the inspirational story of Ntando Mahlangu. But first, as always, it's 900 hours. These are the top leading news this hour. Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu has been readmitted to a Cape Town hospital only a few days after being discharged following a surgery just over a week ago. In a statement released on behalf of his wife Leah, Tutu was reportedly readmitted on Saturday as a precaution after a surgical wound had shown signs of infection. Leah Tutu says the family was very grateful for the ongoing prayers and support. A powerful explosion caused by what the authorities believe was a homemade bomb injured at least 29 people on a crowded sidewalk in the bustling Chelsea neighborhood of Manhattan last night. Authorities say they are investigating the blast as a criminal act, but no link to any terror organization as yet. Football news, Bidvest booked their place in the 2016 MTN 8 Cup final after drawing 0-0 with Cape Town City out at the Cape Town Stadium in the Mother City last night. The Clever Boys went into the semi-final second leg encounter leading 3-0 on aggregate. Right, well, my guests this morning are political analyst Professor Stephen Friedman and media analyst Mr. Shani Makari. Gentlemen, a very good morning to both of you. Thank you so much for coming back.
Morning, Alicia. Thank you.
All right, Dini Mekoto, our social and digital media guru, is back with us. Good morning to you, Dini.
Morning, Alicia.
All right, look, I think we need to do a follow-up. The story that we wrapped with is our beginning this week. But tell us what was trending on digital media this week.
This one really played out on social media because Stephen Anderson kept posting videos referring to our Minister of Home Affairs, who he called Malusi Jiba, you know. So this one was a story that played out on social media where the American homophobic pastor was called to order and he was barred from entering the country. So people seem to be supporting what the government has decided on this particular issue. And we have a couple of tweets here from people on social media. Rian van Heerden says, "It's time that all congregations question the message of their spiritual leaders. No hate can be tolerated any longer. Hashtag Stephen Anderson." Pumla Williams also commented on it. "Well done to the SA government from protecting its citizens from the homophobic Stephen Anderson." The last one from Koketso Muweti. "So now that Pastor Stephen Anderson is being kept out, can we also deal with the homo prejudice of our own pastors, friends, colleagues, etc.?" So Koketso is asking us to take it further.
Yeah,
it's not only
let's have those debates.
This guy who's homophobic, and these are people of our society, people like you and me. They're just different in their sexual orientation.
Let's find out from the gentleman. Gentlemen, what did you think? Professor, let's start with you.
Well, I think it's not surprising people are happy that he was excluded. He's not only incidentally homophobic, he's also racist, he's also bigoted in a whole lot of other ways. In fact, the last time I checked, the only country besides America he's allowed into is Botswana. I'm not quite sure, maybe Botswana citizens don't know about it. But I think the point is also valid. You know, it's very easy and appropriate to point a finger at somebody so obviously bigoted. But very often they're just extreme versions of other prejudices. So yes, there are homophobic South Africans. There are also bigoted South Africans. And we should never forget that.
Shani, quick one.
No, I agree with the professor that we need, in a way, this incident has actually given us an opportunity to reflect on ourselves and some of the prejudices that we hold. And it's time to actually do something about those, or maybe, you know, take the debate further. Instead of focusing on the American, let's focus on ourselves and see what are the things that we still hold that are prejudicial, and perhaps reflect some more on those.
Yeah, you know what I found interesting during that press briefing, Dean, was the fact that one of the journalists asked a question that what happens to the people that actually invited him, because that means they share particularly the same views on that matter. But let's move on and find out what else was topping the digital front this week.
This one, people were singing praises of Winnie Mandela. As you know, in the past week,
doesn't she look gorgeous?
Gorgeous.
Doesn't
At 80,
she look gorgeous?
I know there are about 25-year-olds who'd
I mean, who would kill to look
I
like
didn't want
that?
to use that word, but who would kill to look like this beautiful woman? But she's always been beautiful, you know. That beauty
Absolutely.
has always been something to admire. So people are just sharing their messages of awe, you
Let's
know.
take
They're
some
in
of those
awe
tweets
of
there.
beauty. Black say hashtag Winnie Mandela is gorgeous, guys. I mean, damn. She's really impressed. Bushe Mbuyisa also. Happy birthday, Mama Winnie Mandela. Everything about you gives me life. Stay as beautiful as you are. And then the last one there is from Sangweni. If man, Winnie Mandela, knew the love I have for her,
Shem.
I love that strong woman. So people are mesmerized by her beauty.
Absolutely, man. We can only hope that we get to that age and look that good. Gentlemen, what did you think of Mama Winnie's 80th birthday? A quick one, Shani?
Well, the guest list was quite surprising for me.
Yeah,
given
it was quite a mixture of people.
Mixture of different political persuasions, and that was interesting for me to see all those people in attendance.
It's motherly love. It brings everybody together. Prof?
I find it interesting that the tweets are all, I mean, appropriate to say, the tweets are all talking about her as her appearance and etc. And not so much about her political career. I think that there's a lot more unity about her beauty and her presence, etc., than about her political career. What I do find very interesting, like Shawnee, is that you had both the EFF people there and the ANC people there. And my own impression is that she's much more sympathetic to the EFF than ANC people would like her to be, but clearly it wouldn't have made much sense for them to stay away because of that.
Professor, they were celebrating her birthday here. That's why everything turned out to be about her looks.
And interestingly enough, on what Prof is saying, we'll look at the top videos from our YouTube channel, SABC Digital News. A comment or Malema's memories on Winnie Mandela was one of the videos that really attracted a lot of attention.
Okay, so they can still catch it on our digital platform.
Yeah,
then.
but before we get to that one, another hashtag that really had people talking, data must fall. And how appropriate for us to talk about data cost when talking about online and digital news.
Very appropriate.
Thibaut Touch seemed to get this one going when he tweeted that he will get people to join this struggle by sending this tweet. Good morning, data must fall, soldiers. The world is watching this revolution. We'll be sharing our presentation to Parliament to all followers. I don't know if that can be confirmed, but that's what he's claiming. And this is just a representation, a graphical representation of how much we as South Africans are charged compared to other African countries and another country in Asia, India. 1 gigabyte of data in India, 11 rands.
Wow.
1 gigabyte of data in Nigeria. This is from MTN, actually, and this price is from MTN because I know I'm an MTN subscriber.
No, even Vodacom, you pay the same amount, yeah?
See, 149, actually MTN is 160 now. So it's 160 for MTN, 22 rand in Nigeria.
My
the difference.
goodness.
And in Namibia, 32 rand.
Gentlemen, what do you think about that? I mean, didn't they say that our charges are on par with the competition tribunal's standards, Prof?
They always say that.
Yeah.
No, I think it's very interesting, way beyond the data space, because, you know, we are continually told as South Africans that the problem in South Africa is we have an efficient, competitive private sector and a government which gets things wrong.
Yeah.
We don't have an efficient, competitive private. There's nothing efficient and competitive about 149 rand a gigabyte. So we need to look a lot more at our private monopolies, at regulation of businesses so that they're actually charging fair prices to customers. I mean, you know, we're competing here with other countries which also have a lot of business activity. You don't drive away business if you force them to charge decent prices. You can make a very good living in South Africa selling data at the prices they pay in Nigeria and India. You don't have to charge that.
My goodness, don't I just want to move to Nigeria where I just pay 22 rand or I'll go buy it there? What do you think?
And considering that we are all developing countries.
Absolutely.
The difference here is amazing.
It's quite shocking. But the Competition Commission then maybe needs to give us a proper statement as to why our prices are like that. Let's move on to the next one, Dini.
Top 5 most watched videos on the SABC digital platform this week.
Yes.
President Zuma answers oral questions in Parliament. That was on Tuesday, which is a story we'll be talking about later on.
Yes, just now.
Hillary Clinton rushed away from 9/11 ceremony. SABC thank you concert that also generated a lot of views on our YouTube channel. And Mendoza performing at that particular concert also got watched. And then the 5th one is what we had previously talked about. Malema shares his memories with Umamu Wili.
How do people access our digital space?
So if you go to YouTube, and search for SABC Digital News as it's written there.
Yes.
And then search, it will land you on our platform.
On
Media
the latest
Monitor,
videos.
every episode of Media Monitor is also available there.
I know somebody from the UAE was saying that we did not have the latest episode of Media Monitor last week, so I'm holding you to that.
I checked before I came here. It's the 11th September Media Monitor is there.
Didi Mekuta, we'll see you again next week. Thank you so much for joining us. It's time for a quick ad break. More Media Monitor shortly after that.
The Orange River is South Africa's major river. It rises in the Drakensberg in Lesotho, known as the Senqu River. It flows through Free State via Van der Kloof Dam, Eastern Cape into Gariep Dam, Northern Cape and Richterveld Transfrontier Park, which is part of Namibia. Orange River is 2,090 kilometers long. It finally flows into the Atlantic Ocean at Alexander Bay.
Welcome back to Media Monitor. The two senior National Prosecuting Authority officials were found unfit to be advocates by the Pretoria High Court on Thursday, have since been put on special leave. However, the pair, NPA Deputy Nomgcobo Jiba and Head of Specialized Crimes Unit Lawrence Mrwebi, are set to appeal the scathing court judgment that could see them forced to vacate their positions.
This is the most marvellous thing that's happened to the NPA for a long time. To be able to get rid of Jiba and Mrwebi, who are both toxic and have brought nothing but disrepute to the National Prosecuting Authority, have wrought nothing but destruction. It's wonderful news for the NPA, and I'm sure that every thinking prosecutor is rejoicing. So no, it's not bad news for the NPA. It's outstanding news for the NPA to get rid of them, so that the NPA can regain its dignity, its integrity, its independence, most importantly.
We welcome this judgment. It is far-reaching, and of course to find an advocate not to be fit and proper and to strike them from the role would mean that they could lose their job.
It's good that the court has exposed them, have removed them as advocates, and it's one thing that must serve as a lesson to many other advocates who are working in institutions that are supposed to promote our democracy in South Africa and defend it. We've cautioned on many occasions that Jiba is serving a political agenda in the NPA.
Quick comments about the latest developments there, Prof.
Well, obviously, unless they're able to be successful on appeal, they're going to have to leave the... I mean, you can't operate in the NPA if you're not an advocate in their position. Look, I think that, you know, the upside of this is that it does show that our constitutional system works. The complaint against them, incidentally, was brought by Mr. Nkosana, who was the previous head of the NPA. The court judgment was very clear. Obviously, another court might come to another decision, but as it stands at the moment, the message which has gone out, we haven't seen the entire court judgment, but given the complaint with Mr. Nkosana submitted, the issue here is that they clearly seem to have abused their position by being politically partial, by being politically biased. Obviously, if you can prevent that happening in the justice system, we're in much better shape.
Shani?
Well, I'm hoping that these developments, I don't often quote EFF, but you know, the gentleman said earlier that hopefully this will be a warning shot for other individuals in state institutions who are supposed to use those institutions to advance the interests of the people as opposed to, say, advancing the interests of individuals within the system.
Let's talk about that. I mean, what does, them being put on special leave now, what does it say about the integrity of the judiciary? Prof, you did mention that it shows that our democracy actually works, but as you heard Ms. Breitenbach there, she says they've brought nothing but disrepute and destruction to the NPA.
Well, Ms. Breitenbach is an opposition politician who left the NPA, who has been conducting a battle with the NPA, which is her right as a citizen. Yeah. But I think the point that we're both making is that whether or not this makes Ms. Breitenbach happy, I think it should make South Africans happy in the sense that you should. I mean, I know a lot of other places where there are biased prosecutors who just carry on being biased prosecutors. And if we have a system at the moment in this country where if people do behave like that, a properly set up court can evaluate the evidence and come to a considered conclusion, that is a very big plus for South Africa.
Shani, I mean, what do you make of the fact that Ms. Nomgcobo Jiba's lawyer says they're going to take this to the Constitutional Court if needs be?
Well, I mean, obviously they will do that because the consequences are far-reaching. Because what are they going to do after that? They can't practice, in private practice. The only other option could be perhaps a deployment as an ambassador somewhere. But obviously, if they're not able to get this tent, which is very unlikely, from what the commentators who are familiar with the case are saying, is that this has far-reaching consequences for their careers. So I can see them taking it all the way to the Constitution, but it does not necessarily diminish the weight of the message, which is that the judges have found them to be unfit and proper to hold those positions, and most importantly, to be advocates. And you're stripped of that title, then there are serious consequences.
You see, that's the point. I mean, it's not only a judgment which says they can't operate, they can't be public officials. They can't actually practice as advocates, and that's a huge decision by the court.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that. I mean, gentlemen, we know that Nomgcobo Jiba was, of course, it caused a lot of controversy in the issue about the spy tapes, which was most noted, as well as the Boysen case. But I mean, what were some of the issues that were pertaining to this?
You see, I think that there is a perception among many South Africans that the NPA is not politically impartial. I mean, if you consider the history, it's had a very turbulent history, even up to the present. We mentioned Mr. Nkosana, who was seen by many people as an independent head of the NPA. He suddenly left, etc. So the perception out there is probably extreme, but nevertheless the perception is there. If you're independent, you have a problem in the NPA. If you're not independent, you don't. And hopefully this will knock that on the head, and we can have some more public confidence in the NPA than we've had before.
Are we getting more confidence due to this decision?
Well, I think it's a good start. Obviously, I mean, there are people who actually felt that this decision should have been taken a long time ago, following the judgment by the High Court. Yeah. We shouldn't have waited for the actual outcome, because the thing that troubles me personally, as far as our sort of people who occupy high office in this country, is that we use the law instead of ethics as the standard. Ethics should be above what the law prescribes. Absolutely. And we'll be a better society if people actually sit down and say, okay, I know that I have the right X, Y, Z, but in terms of ethics, am I still fit to be holding that position? And then recuse yourself, or remove yourself from that position, given the cloud that's hanging over you. But we don't do that. We have to be dragged out of office, kicking and screaming.
Well, not only that. You see, the other point that should have been made is, I mean, the good thing here is that the NPA has put them on special leave. Yes. Because we have an unfortunate situation in this country where even when what Shawnee's talking about happens, people do not leave office. Yep. I mean, for example, the current head of the Hawks, General Mrwebi, there is a court judgment saying that he behaved unethically. The judge was absolutely scathing, and there don't seem to be any consequences.
Still in office, yeah. I mean, to your understanding, gentlemen, do you think now this case of this pair points to a certain level or amount of political influence? What do you think is at play here, Shani?
Well, it's always difficult to say in terms of political influence, because only when the consequences emerge then can one make that kind of call. But I could only say that we probably haven't seen the last of this. I'm sure there will be other developments.
Sean is scared to say, Professor.
I'm sorry, which case are you talking about?
In terms of, does it amount? Do you think them being put on special leave, do you think it's any political influence there?
No, I think that the NPA realizes, which is a start, that if a court has struck them off the roll, you can't have them practicing while the courts decide that. Because then you have a situation where people have to deal with a lawyer who a judge has said should not be practicing. So the proper thing to do in this situation, if you want any credibility, you have to put them on special leave.
But I mean, what happens if they win it at the Constitutional Court then?
No, but
Were we wrong about our perceptions?
No, but the point is, it's not as if some random member of the public has accused them of something. A High Court judge has issued a decision. Sometimes High Court judges' decisions get overturned, but doesn't mean it's improper. I think anybody who has a judgment against them against the High Court judge should be suspended until the thing is resolved.
All right, well, that's where we leave it on that discussion. We're going to take a very quick ad break. We're back shortly after that. Do stay with us.
The Orange River is South Africa's major river. It rises in the Drakensberg in Lesotho, known as the Senqu River. It flows through Free State via Van der Kloof Dam, Eastern Cape into Gariep Dam, Northern Cape and Richterveld Transfrontier Park, which is part of Namibia. Orange River is 2,090 kilometers long. It finally flows into the Atlantic Ocean at Alexander Bay.
Welcome back. Outgoing Public Protector Advocate Thuli Madonsela went a step further this week in her probe into allegations of state capture when she subpoenaed the cabinet. The presidency says it will comply with Advocate Madonsela by providing all the requested documents that relate to the appointment of acting ministers, while designated ministers were in assignments abroad, and declaration of cabinet minutes for a period between November last year to April this year.
We're doing our best to complete all investigations that are in our hands. We're not 100% sure how far we'll be, but we'll have a report.
Gentlemen, Prof?
Well, that's very interesting because, her problem is, or the problem is that she's leaving office shortly. And of course, legally, that doesn't make a difference. I mean, the investigation's done by her office,
ongoing.
not done by her personally. But I think what she's saying there, which makes a lot of sense, is that it's more messy to have a situation where she leaves office and the next public protector has to deal with it. So what she's trying to do is wrap it up in the sense of saying, look, before I go out of office, I want to put in a report on this, and then obviously if they're loose ends, the next public protector will have to decide.
But then won't that mean a rush job, necessarily?
Well, not necessarily, and I think it will be a great test for the new public protector to see how she handles this case going forward. And we hope that she will, take it with the same zeal and gusto that Madonsela seemed to have taken to all the other cases that we put before her.
You see, as far as the rush job is concerned, if you were listening to what she said on air, she said, I don't know how far we will get, but there will be a report. It may be an interim report. It may say, look, this is how far we've got up to now, and then it'll be the next public protector's decision about whether to take that forward in any way.
But let's talk about that. I mean, what do you make of the actual probe itself, Professor?
Well, I don't think she's got any option. I mean, if members, that's the way the Office of the Public Protector works.
Yes.
If members of the public are unhappy, they bring complaints, and the office has to investigate. And that's what's happened in this situation. I mean, it doesn't say anything at this stage about what they will find and what they won't find. But her office would not be doing her job if they were not doing this, because they did receive complaints. There clearly is concern, and people want to know what her investigations reveal.
Much like.
Well, this view has been expressed obviously before. The fact that business, not just in South Africa but in other countries as well, tends to operate very closely to government, because obviously that's how you influence the outcome of big projects. The issue here is not so much that that happens. The issue is the manner in which certain individuals have been relating to certain high-ranking public officials. It's almost like, giving the finger to the public that, you know what, we can do whatever we like because we have these friends over here. You know, some public officials have even said, these are friends of mine, leave them alone. How do you do that when you hold such a office of,
high integrity?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But, I mean, gentlemen, do you now foresee, with all that in mind, do you foresee the release of the reports, should it be by the current public protector or the next one, mending those wounds that have been caused by the allegations, Prof?
Well, I think what it does bring is that there's a credible investigation. That doesn't end the matter, but at least it changes. And we need, I mean, Shawny is right, we need a debate on this. You see, to me, yes, there's a problem about business influence in government. I think that has to be accepted. On the other hand, look, these allegations have to be tested by the public prosecutor. If certain allegations are true, there's a difference between a business which lobbies and a business which calls in a deputy minister and says, if you do what we tell you to do, you'll be the minister. Now, clearly, if those allegations are true, that is at a very different level. I mean, that is directly interference. So I think that the investigation, at the very least, should establish what happened, and then as a society we can debate what we ought to do about it.
Shani?
No, absolutely. I think the investigation has to happen, and I doubt very much that we'll get conclusive sort of outcome out of this investigation.
Why?
Obviously, because of, first of all, some people may not be willing to come forward to actually testify, other than the people who already made statements in the past. So essentially, we're looking at an issue based on the same evidence that we already have, and
they've promised to comply with the investigation.
Pretty much the same way that they promised to comply with the first investigation or previous investigations.
Let's expand on that, though. I mean, Professor, why do you think the interest, the focus, I think you touched on it a little bit just now, was on the appointment of acting ministers?
Well, because there is a suggestion, there is an allegation, it's very straightforward, there is an allegation that people are being appointed to ministries not because they are meant to serve South Africa, but because they are being put there with people with money who have enough power to put them in there. I mean, that is obviously not something you can leave hanging around out there without investigating. Maybe she won't get to the bottom of it, or office won't get to the bottom of it. I mean, obviously by subpoenaing the documents, they're hoping that they can go through the documents and establish various patterns, etc. That certainly doesn't end the matter, but maybe it tells us more than we know so far.
Shoni, I'm interested in what you have to say.
Also, I mean, obviously, it's very easy for someone to actually, if you really want to do something dodgy, it's incredibly easy to actually get your cousin or your friend to be the real shareholder of a business that you are actually influencing in order for that business to benefit. So the paper trail won't reflect that. You know, we'll end up with the same situation. We say, well, are you saying my cousins aren't allowed to do business in this country? And then we're back to square one. But they will go and declare the things that, the coffee mugs that they got from another minister in Afghanistan or whatever. But the real issues, where the real debt lies, I'm sure they've probably, those things, if they exist, I mean, I'm not making allegations here, but if they exist, I would like to think that they would have been done in a slightly more smarter way than just go out there and register that, by the way, I own, 6 million shares in Anglo-American. And why aren't they getting that license, by the way?
Well, the allegations are true. A lot of it wasn't terribly smart. I mean, you're absolutely right about shell companies, etc. But there's nothing particularly smart about going to a deputy minister and say, if you do what we tell you to do, we'll make you a minister.
Imagine that. Imagine that.
No, well, that's what they were alleged to have done. So that is why we have this investigation.
No, but Professor, I'm sure you saw the debate in Parliament this week, and it seems like the general notion, they were saying that, everybody, whoever is saying that these allegations are true, they must bring about the relevant proof, and it needs to be investigated. They even pointed them to the relevant bodies, that being the SAPS, and they did encourage people to go out there and bring that relevant proof.
Except the argument on the other side is, I mean, it's unethical. There is nothing illegal about telling Deputy Minister Jonas that if you do what we tell you to do, we will make you a minister.
Why isn't that illegal?
No, it's not illegal. In what way is it illegal? It's immoral, but it's not illegal. On the other hand, people on his side of the fence will argue, well, if you really think we defamed you, why don't you take us to court and sue us, and then we'll see whose evidence stands up. So it depends which side you're on this thing. I mean, it's not true in any democracy that anybody who makes an allegation about the way in which politicians behave has to lay a charge against them. Not everything politicians do which the public doesn't like is illegal.
But is it true for them to say that, the state was sold long back ago? I mean, what are they trying to say about that, Shani?
Well, obviously, there's been talk about how many billions of rands left the country just before 1994, and all the other high-profile families that have done business either with the state or in some other way connected to the state.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what they're referring to. But it doesn't make it right, and we shouldn't use that as the benchmark in terms of how things should happen in this country. We should be trying to correct that kind of relationship that exists between business and state.
They're saying those that are crying foul about this monopoly, capture, they are actually the front for this monopoly capture.
Yeah, well, as I say, we need to distinguish between various things. There is a huge problem there. We do not have any laws in this country, and incidentally, many of the politicians who are making precisely that argument won't pass these laws. We have no laws saying that we, the South African public, have a right to know who gives money to politicians. There is no, there are laws of that sort in many other countries. We don't have that. So as long as you don't have a law like that, yes, of course, we don't know who's giving money to which politician for which favour. But as Shani says, and I think most South Africans would say, you do not say that the alleged behaviour is okay because other people are also behaving that way. What you're supposed to say is, let's find the other people who are also behaving that way.
Everyone
and
must
hold them
come to account.
Yes.
All right, well, that's where we're going to leave it on that discussion. Take another quick ad break. We're back shortly after that.
Did you know that Vilakazi Street is the only street in the world to have housed 2 Nobel Prize winners? Vilakazi Street in Orlando West, Soweto, southwest of Johannesburg in the Republic of South Africa, has been home to Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Nelson Mandela's house was a modest family house from 1946 and still maintains those features. Archbishop Desmond Tutu still owns his house in Vilakazi Street since 1975 and often goes to stay there when visiting Johannesburg. Because of its popularity, the street has an influx of tourists. Restaurants with local cuisine have mushroomed around it, creating job opportunities for the locals and improving the lifestyle in the area. Orlando West High School in Vilakazi Street is known for its creative role during the famous 1976 uprising.
Now, President Jacob Zuma appeared in Parliament on Tuesday for a question and answer session. The session was again marred by chaos, with two parties, the EFF and COPE, walking out of the House during the proceedings. President Zuma appeared visibly agitated and mentioned how he's always subjected to abuse during these sessions. Here's a clip from his speech.
I think the establishment of these committees is not just a cosmetic exercise, but it's meant to deal with the perennial issues that have been there, the challenges that have been there. In your own way, Mr. President, what do you believe are the main challenges facing these state-owned companies, and how can they be dealt with immediate effect on a short, long-term period?
We have been saying is that the state-owned enterprises are working at times in silos, in a different kind of ways. Much as many are working well, others might not have worked well, but we thought it was important, and that is what the proposal is, that we coordinate them so that they can work better and pull together their efforts on matters and coordinate, instead of one working in one direction and the other in one direction. That will help us to be able to supervise them in a coordinated fashion, and that will be different than when they are working just on their own or having to do coordination on their own. This time around, from the presidency, we'll be able to supervise and see where the weaknesses are and what we need to do to address those weaknesses.
President Fandi spoke out and he said that the speakers must have their houses in order because of the abuse he faces when he goes to these oral question sessions. And there was much reaction from the opposition parties after that.
Look, what is happening in Parliament, I think, is very simple at the moment. The opposition parties believe, remember this went on for quite a long time, the opposition parties believe that this particular tactic is one of the reasons they did well in the local elections. So if you're a politician,
is that true,
you think, I don't think it is true, but that's another issue. I think that if you analyze the election results, what happened in the local election is not that masses of people went over to the opposition, but a lot of ANC voters decided not to vote. Now, how you establish that they did that because they like people, putting on a good show in Parliament or not, I don't know. It's not my impression. But I'm simply saying that the strategic reality here is that the opposition parties believe that by focusing on the president, by making life as difficult as possible for him, they win votes and they win elections. And the way in which politics work is that as long as they think that, this is what Parliament is going to be like.
Shani.
Well, the simplest analogy I can come up with to explain that is imagine a married man having an affair, and then the woman keeps extorting money from her. The simplest way to stop that extortion is to come out and become clean with your wife and say, I'm having an affair. So what's happening in Parliament is that people are defending the indefensible. And this will continue to happen until we deal with the real problems, lack of leadership at various spheres. And then things, the EFF is a symptom of what's going on. It's not, and they will continue on that script until something, because the moment you cut out that metaphorical thing, extorting
the extortion,
then the person has nothing to hold you on. And they will continue to be held on to something because they continue to defend the indefensible. And that chaos will never stop. And as the professor said, the opposition is loving it because they think it's leverage, they think it wins them votes. And, it's a script that, according to their view, seems to have worked. Why stop a good thing?
Well, I think the debate that needs to be had with the opposition is this the most effective tactic you can use? I mean, given those problems. And I think, there are serious question marks about that. What I've always pointed out in the last few months, etc., this question of Mr. Zuma paying back the money I mean, you had people standing up in Parliament and theatre, etc.
Yeah.
He never paid back the money. You use the system, you go to the courts, now he's paid back the money.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lesson in that. You know, I'm not sure that the public thinks, I think that the public is concerned about these issues. You're absolutely right there. But I don't think there's particular evidence that the public thinks that the best way to do this is to hurl abuse at each other in Parliament. There may be considerable support for the view that you use the democracy we've got to air these issues, to hold him to account, and that's the way you ought to do it in a constitutional democracy.
Well, speaking of real issues, gentlemen, I need to hear your views on the government strategy to revive the economy. Prof?
Well, I think that, you know, it's something that I talk a lot to business people, etc. I think the issue at the moment is nobody's sure what that strategy is. I mean, one of the, you know, in between all the theatre, the president was asked about the strategy in Parliament, and he didn't really spell out anything.
Yeah, he said they've chosen a few projects, the top 10 of those projects.
My understanding, look, that is not necessarily negative in the long term. My understanding of what is happening at the moment is that there have been, for most of this year, very serious discussions between the National Treasury and sections of business, which are about, and Labour has been involved, which is very important, which is about how we get this economy onto a stronger footing. But you know, the positive approach to take to it is, well, until you've got something concrete which business and Labour can support, then it doesn't make much sense to spell out something which is going to have to be changed later. So I think what we ought to be looking at is less what was said in Parliament, but whether that process which Treasury is involved in is actually producing results.
Well, the most distressing thing about people who are supposed to be running our economy is that we've come up with this wonderful strategy documents, like the National Development Plan, for instance, and then they get talked about from time to time, but essentially get shelved. And some of the people who are supposed to have been part of the consensus to build those documents then go out in public and say, actually, you know, we're for the government, but we're not for that plan. So how do we move forward when there's so much fragmentation in terms of the people who are supposed to actually take our economy forward? And right now, I know the president said, you know what, the government is not at war with each other, but what is playing out in the media, what's playing out in the public domain, does seem to suggest that the government is at war with itself, never mind getting our economy anywhere. If they can't actually agree between themselves, what hope do we have in terms of you know, getting something as big as our economy to actually move in a particular direction?
You know, Prof, the questions that the president was going to answer actually circulated in the media beforehand. Do you think that they were properly addressed?
No, they weren't properly addressed, but, you know, we're not in an environment at the moment where those things are getting properly addressed. I mean, one of the complaints which some of us have, and, you know, you can talk about the government being a war itself, and that's part of the problem. We are not in a political climate at the moment where people seriously discuss policy issues. We're not in an environment where people...
And
I mean, the question of what we should do about poverty, of what we should do about inequality, of what we should do about economic growth, of what we should do about education and health are not discussed at the moment. All we do is discuss these political fights. We're a democracy. The political fights have to happen. But some of us are saying, you know, meanwhile, out there's a country in which people are battling, and when are we going to start talking about that?
You know, Moody's did say that they're going to be watching closely that the political infighting is actually sorted out before they make their decision later on this year. Time for another quick ad break. We're back after that.
The Kalahari Transportier Park is a large wildlife preserve and conservation area in southern Africa. Kalahari means place of thirst. The total area is 38,000 square kilometers. Approximately 3/4 of the park lie in Botswana and 1/4 in South Africa. South Africa embraced the concept of transfer tiers linking ecological reserves across national borders. On the 12th of May 2000, President Festus Mogae of Botswana and Thabo Mbeki of South Africa formally launched South Africa's first peace park. It has 200 species of birds, including vultures, mammalians such as black Kalahari lions, and large herds of herbivores, namely elands, springboks, blue wildebeest, and more.
Let's talk sports news now here, and we're talking Rio Olympics when Ntando Mahlangu, the 14-year-old double amputee, emerged as the darling of the team among South Africans after winning a silver medal in the 200 meters, and his story proved to be a great inspiration. Meanwhile, Team South Africa added another medal to their tally on the penultimate day of the competition at the 2016 Paralympic Games taking place in Rio de Janeiro. Elise Hayes claimed her second piece of silverware in Rio, a silver in the women's 400 meters T13 event. Here's more on this package.
Hayes was first up for South Africa on the track in the women's 400 meters T13 event. She was slow out of the blocks, settling into sixth place for most of the race. But Hayes, who has 5 Paralympic medals to her name since Athens in 2004, held her nerve, battling back in the home straight. She powered her way through the field, knocking off 4 places to eventually finish in second place, just over a second behind the winner, Nantanine Keita of France, who produced a lifetime best 55.79 seconds to grab gold. It's Hayes' second medal in Rio, adding to the silver she won in the women's 100 meters T13 last weekend.
He's been twice world champion. He's the reigning world champion in that.
Veteran Hilton Langenhoven kept his hope of a second medal alive in the men's T12 400 meters. Langenhoven led from start to finish in his semi-final, booking his place in the final with a time of 22.50 seconds. His compatriot Ndodomzi Ntutu wasn't as lucky in the second semi of the event. Ntutu just missed out on a spot in the final after crossing the line in third place. South Africa now has 15 medals from these games so far, 6 gold, 5 silver and 4 bronze, and is in 22nd place in the overall standings. Samantha Mari, SABC News.
Ooh, gentlemen, 15 medals to the tally. Are we seeing an improvement in our participation on the international stage?
Well, I mean, we certainly saw I haven't done the comparison on the Paralympics. I mean, in the able-bodied Olympics,
there were
we did have an improvement. No,
10 medals, yeah.
You see, 20 seconds sounds to me pretty good. The problem about the Paralympics is that there are a lot more categories, there are a lot more medals.
Oh, yes, yes.
But still, if we are 22nd in the world in the Paralympics, I mean, that's got to be a very important achievement.
Shani, what do you think?
No, absolutely. I mean, I was obviously impressed with the story of that young man.
How
the fact
inspirational is he?
He was really determined. You can tell from an early age. And if you, to quote the story on City Press this morning, talking about the fact that at the age of 10, this boy went to his parents and said, "You know what? I want to be amputated so I can actually be able to run." So he made that decision very early on, and he was determined, and he stayed on the course. And look at the results today.
I mean, at 14,
and to walk with probably 3 years ago.
Yeah, but Prof, I mean, at 14, he ran at a time of 23.77 seconds with men twice his age to win a silver medal.
I mean, for anybody at the age of 14, I mean, it's an astounding story. But I think the other thing, I mean, he's obviously an exceptional human being, but the obvious thing about this is the wonderful thing about the Paralympics is that it gives people this opportunity. Paralympics is not that old, and you've got this wonderful stage in which people like him can actually, despite their disabilities, become human beings who people respect and develop their talents. So I think that's something we really ought to value.
I mean, speaking of development, do you think there needs to be more focus on the Paralympic team as well, Shani, towards when it comes to Olympics?
I would say we need more focus or more energy into our sport overall, because I mean, look at the way. Yes, our athletes did well, but I'm pretty sure that we could do much better than that. But there seems to be a lot more determination from the Paralympians than there is from our able-bodied
That's what I
sportsmen
mean,
women.
and
So
they seem to have gotten more coverage, more than the Paralympic team.
So in that sense, it's not surprising. I mean, these are people who've overcome adversity, all of them. I mean, whether they're 14 or 34, it's amazing, you know. But still, I agree with you. I mean, we could do a lot better in our sporting.
What needs to happen, Prof?
The old stories, more training, more development, more resources. Look, obviously you have to make decisions about that. We don't have to do, you know, the British are now sweeping the board because they literally devote millions of pounds to producing winners. I mean, we've got other things on our plate. We've got to worry about poverty. We've got to worry about inequality. I don't think anybody's suggesting we should do what they're doing. But even with the resources we've got, we could put far more energy. I mean, if you look at the national sport in this country, which is obviously football, I mean, if you consider the resources we've got in this country and how we perform in AFCON and on the world stage, it's almost embarrassing. I mean, there are countries with a quarter of the financial resources we have who are totally outperforming us, and we have to be concerned about that.
That is very strange that we seem to be putting the focus on the wrong things, Shani. Do you think that's the problem?
Well, I was just thinking, well, the professor was speaking about the story I think I saw on CNN talking about China and how they've actually put a long-term goal to literally winning the Soccer World Cup, say in 15, 20 years' time.
Wow.
And they've erected these huge schools of developing younger players. And I think maybe the issue is with us that we want quick wins instead of actually saying, okay, if we want to be somebody, or if we want to rank at this level in 5 or 10 years' time, what needs to happen today? And then we put the resources and, work towards that goal. And perhaps that's what we're doing.
There's a very good example of that in football right now, as I understand the situation. The current national coach, Sheikh Mashaba, when he was appointed on a 5-year development contract.
Yes.
So the idea was, if you appoint somebody on a 5-year development contract, you evaluate them after 5 years. You don't evaluate them after 2 defeats. So suddenly we have the whole thing. Start for holding meetings. Mashaba must go. Well, you can't expect the guy to deliver on a 5-year mandate in 18 months or whatever.
18 months, yeah. Let's see what they're saying at home on this topic. Kuzwayo Industry says, hashtag Ntando Mahlangu, hashtag let's go Rio 2016. Big up to you. At 14 years old, we are proud as a Mzansi. Comment David says, can't keep up with all the medals. Congrats, Dion, Hilton, Elise, and anyone else I might have missed. Hashtag Team SA, hashtag let's go Rio 2016, hashtag Paralympics. Agnes Buthelezi says, proud of the hashtag Team SA, hashtag Paralympics, and she's clapping her hands there. Kathy 26456 says, last day of the hashtag Paralympics, I will miss it. I have really enjoyed watching those inspirational athletes who can teach us all a lesson. What do you think about that, Shani?
No, it's true indeed that this young man can definitely teach all of us a lesson in terms of determination and setting a goal and working towards it, overcoming adversity along the way.
Those are great stories to tell, Prof.
They are great stories to tell, and as I say, I think that we should draw the lessons from them. Not only the lessons that we should be inspired by people who do this, but the lesson that we need to create opportunities for people who to express themselves. People who 20 years ago would have simply been written off. It's very inspiring. That's it.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning here on Media Monitor. That is Professor Stephen Friedman and, of course, Mr. Shani Makari joining us for another live edition of Media Monitor. And thank you at home for joining us. We do hope that you will join us again, same time and place next week. That is right here on the SABC News channel. I'm Alicia Jali. I'll be back with your news at 10. That's AM News. Do stay with us.
The Kalahari Transportier Park is a large wildlife preserve and conservation area in southern Africa. Kalahari means place of thirst. The total area is 38,000 square kilometers. Approximately 3/4 of the park lie in Botswana and 1/4 in South Africa. South Africa embraced the concept of transfrontiers linking ecological reserves across national borders. On the 12th of May 2000, President Festus Mogae of Botswana and Thabo Mbeki of South Africa formally launched South Africa's first peace park. It has 200 species of birds, including vultures, mammalians such as black Kalahari lions, and large herds of herbivores, namely elands, springboks, blue wildebeest, and more.
Children represent the future, and ensuring their health and development ought to be a prime concern of all societies. Thousands of children under the age of 5 die every year of mainly preventable causes. HIV and AIDS-related diseases are still a major cause of death in young children, followed by pneumonia and acute diarrhea. Malnutrition is a major contributing factor to child death. 1 in 4 children is stunted, and many are deficient in minerals essential in preventing disease and disability.
So South Africa is a party to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which states that a child has the right to the highest attainable standard of living. Our own constitution confers the right to an environment that's not harmful to his or her health, and for children specifically, it confers the right to adequate nutrition and basic healthcare services. I think that is quite important for people to understand.
Section 28 of the Constitution is devoted to children and outlines their rights.
Although there are efforts to ameliorate their plight, the situation for many children remains dire. As far as child health is concerned, challenges that exist are a lack of education, as well as aspects such as challenges in the healthcare system with regard to finances, infrastructure and resources. Also in South Africa, there's a large amount of inequity. That is a vast distinction between children living in affluence and those in poverty, and this is reflected in the child's state of health.
A study conducted by Human Sciences Research Council reveals that poor health care, low immunization rates, and misguided infant feeding practices also contribute to poor health in pregnant women and children.
During pregnancy, ensure that no drugs are taken, that there's no smoking and no drinking, that parents ensure that they are as informed as possible surrounding child health, that positive habits are practiced in order to ensure that the child's environment is clean and healthy, then aspects such as immunization and ensuring that the child is taken to a healthcare facility when or if the child becomes ill.
Of great concern are the high death rates of newborn babies. Almost 40% of all under 5 deaths occur in the first 28 days of life, according to UNICEF.
Infant mortality rate, under 5 mortality rate remain high, and maternal health remains a continuing issue. Many children live far away from a healthcare facility, and many children suffer from child hunger and malnutrition, which leads to stunting and